Hello everyone, I'm Saurabh Rajpa, a self-proclaimed web guru, not guru, guru. Remember minions? And I'm always looking forward to meet a lot of web minions, aka web minions. So if you're one of them, let's comment we are web minions in the chat and welcome to everyone. A bit more about myself. I work at Google as a web ecosystem consultant. Visavis, a technical trusted advisor for top websites in India to make sure web is a great place for everyone, making sure it's fast, user friendly, and most importantly, useful for driving business for millions of companies. I consult companies on speed audits, building PWAs and or AMP, and also adopt latest web APIs like SMS receiver API, contact picker API. Well, there are plenty of them now, which is like just minimizing a lot of gap between web and app. And that's an interesting place to be in at the moment. In short, I work with the most awesome technology that I can think of, something which has survived through the years and something which will stay on, keep rocking. So before I jump into the core web vitals topic, let me ask you this question. Now, what you see on your screen are two types of different loads, right? So I want to ask you this, which experience would you prefer personally? So there is a pattern A and a pattern B. Both of them are taking more or less the same time, but which one would you prefer? Can you write those preferences over the chat? I quickly want to have a look. Come on, A and B, A or B. Is that a difficult choice to make? Okay, I see some people typing in A. Nice. Any more people? Wow. A obvious. Somebody said it's obvious. A. Please don't write A kya bolti tu. Pardon my bad jokes. I have a lot of them. B, no way. Okay. Cool. So good to see that you guys are writing A. And it's actually amazing that most of you chose A, while most often what we see in the real world is B, right? And I'm sure the ones who are writing A also would be feeling a bit guilty for building experiences which offer B, not A. So yes, A certainly is a right way to go about it amongst these two. Though it takes the same amount of time, at least the users feel that something is happening and they don't drop off, right? Because if you will take say so much of time to land something meaningful to the user, then probably they will feel that your site is not loading. However, if you capture the perception of the user that hey, wait a minute, we are still loading, then they will hold on to your website. Well, let me be super honest here. A might irritate some of your users as well because they'll try to interact with the loaded website, as in, as soon as they see something happening, they'll try to interact with it, but eventually won't be able to because you are still loading, or at least major portion of your main thread is still busy working on something. And that's why you have to improve your website further to reduce the total load time as well. So I think the two main key takeaways from here is when you do apple to apple comparison in such a kind of a say similar load experience or similar time experience, then certainly do something that maybe wrong word to use, but maybe fools the user that okay, your site is loading faster, but eventually still continue to focus on reducing the total load time as well. Cool. And then that brings us to the Web Vitals topic. Now, it's an initiative by Google to help business owners, marketers, and developers identify opportunities to improve user experience. Now, this is very important when we talk about improving user experience. A lot of you think that just building a site or just rolling it out is enough. But let me tell you this thing that a lot of studies have been conducted which shows that if you're not giving good user experience and even performance is part of that, then your business is unlikely to grow as much as it could potentially have. Now with Web Vital initiative, what it's mean is it's meant to simplify the performance metrics measurement landscape. What we mean by that is Earlier, there used to be a lot of different metrics, which a lot of people used to feel it's not something which directly relates to the user experience. My site still gives good experience, or my site is probably behaving in a different way than what is reflected on the performance metrics. But with Web Vitals, it helps the site focus on the metrics that matters the most, and hence we call them the core Web Vitals. We believe that core web vitals are relevant to all web pages and every kind of website, be it your publisher, be it your e-com, be it travel, or any kind of site that you can think of. Each one of them, it's super important. Now, if some of you remember, and I think Sam also briefly touched base upon AMP as a framework, he talked about stories. But if you talk about AMP, it's a great framework which delivers a lot of good core web vital areas. It captures, and that's where it has helped a lot of publishers to already be like core web vital compliant without even thinking about implementing some of the things. But anyway, I'll not go into that space, but I'll say that using that like inspired from AMP, these core web vitals now is something that we are pushing for everyone to achieve, irrespective whether they want to use AMP or not. Now, Core Web Vitals represent the best available signals developers have today to measure the quality of experience of the web. But we do appreciate that these signals are not perfect, and therefore future improvements or additions will come. So, once again, so yeah, first let's know why we need to care about it. Like I know there would be a lot of talks who would briefly touch base upon Core Web Vitals. Even Sam uh, explained few things a bit in detail so that you could understand how you could use, or what's that meaningful, if you could make meaningful usage from the developer tools. But first of all, as a developer, why should you really care about it? Now, improvements in site speed can positively affect a brand's bottom line. Like if you have a brand, and if you are not like delivering a bad site experience, it can negatively affect your brand experience too. So a recent study from Deloitte Digital found that a site speed improvement of just 0.1 second leads to an increase in conversion rates and average order value. I hope you are understanding what I mean by conversion rates and average order value. When I say conversion rates, I mean to say that the potential uplift in the chances that a user would actually convert or achieve your target, which is like say add to cart or making a purchase. And average order value means that if the site was loading faster, probably user would end up buying a bit more. And by the way, it's not a typo. It's actually what you see. Zero point 0.1 seconds can make millions. Just imagine every time you blink your eye, you're making millions. Now let's look at what can cause these incremental 0.1 second delays. As you can see, and I know this is a like most common slide used to like really share the different kind of experiences that users go through. So if this could be repetitive, but as you can see here, these experiences are not new, and in fact are pretty consistent across many websites even out today. That's the sad part. So the current set of 2020 metrics that which are called core web metrics, these focuses on three aspects of user experience. First, loading. Second, interactivity. And third, visual stability. All these three are super important for having or serving a very good user experience. So the loading aspect relates to the interruptions the user may experience while navigating between multiple pages. So it's not only about the first load which is happening, it also about the navigation between multiple pages within your website. For example, if you have a purchase journey where a user is browsing some hotels and then clicking on a hotel, the hotel detail page come, then you go for the booking. So all these like pages individually in the journey, if you are like if the user experiences loading issues, it all causes those interruptions. So discrete metrics such as loading ones correlates to interruptions due to waiting that are obstacles to a good user journey, as I talked about right now. Cool. So second aspect is to consider are the distractions and the errors from low responsiveness. This is critical because delaying something the user expects to be instantaneous may lead to errors. An example is add to cart button, and how users may click twice on the button if they feel it does not respond to their input. How many times have we done that? I think a lot of times this happens. I hope you realize it in time and don't order multiple things in one go, of course. Also, finally, the visual stability aspect, which measures how delightful the user experience is while the components in the page load, and the render becomes like interactive. So in the third visual stability piece, I'm pretty sure that and you can like smile at your end if you feel that you've ever landed onto a wrong website or a wrong wrong link when you clicked something which was unintentional. You're trying to click something and something else happened, and it could happen because of fonts like loading later, or your ad slots actually inserting few things on the later on in the when the website is loading. So again, just to briefly touch base on, because this topic is about Core Web Vitals. Uh, so these are the 2020 Core Web Vital metrics that you're seeing here, and these are included in the W3C and WSEG specs as well. These focus on three major aspects, as mentioned before, which are like LCP, FID, and CLS. They're all measurable in the field. What I mean by that is, like, actual users, how they are experiencing your website is actually captured by all of these matrices. So that's why we say they're all measurable in the field. It's not important that they are only available in the lab when you're developing the website, but even when they are out in the wild, when your users are actually using it. And this is what will best reflect the real world user experience, as I just told you. So LCP, which is also called like the full form is largest contentful paint, measures the loading performance to provide a good user experience. LCP should occur within 2.5 seconds when the page first starts loading, and that's where you will see that green portion. So if your site is loading or your largest contentful paint is being loaded within 2.5 seconds, that's when it's considered a good load experience. Second is FID, or first input delay. It measures the interactivity and should be less than 100 milliseconds. Now, what we mean by this is, if a user is clicking on something and your website is not able to respond back to the user action within 100 milliseconds, it's a bad user experience. And the last one is CLS, or the cumulative layout shift, which measures the visual stability, and it should be less than zero point 0.1. Now you can understand how critical you should be about the jumping content, because anything beyond zero point 0.1 is considered a very bad user experience. So we suggest measuring these matrices on the 75th percentile, I think, as Sam also told you, because you have to make sure that you're hitting this target for most of your users. And that's why when you look at the real user metrics, which talks about how many percentage of users are lying in that green bucket, you should be targeting that most of your users, say 90%, 99% of users are receiving things faster. Now, some of you might be thinking, if I am having a good lab data or like good lab number, for example, I have a Lighthouse score of 90 plus, why should I really bother about real user metrics? Why it can't still, won't it be automatically good? See, the answer is it can be yes and no both. Yes, for the ones who have really like advanced users. Now, by advanced users, I means the tier one city users. For example, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore. If your users are coming mostly from these areas, where the probability is that they would be having good internet connection, which would be lying 4G and above, and if they're coming from good handsets with really good GB of like RAM, then of course those users in real world would be able to load your website faster. Now, compare this with some website which whose main target or users are coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities who are on really low bandwidth. Now, on that piece, it could happen that you could still have lab numbers as high as 90 or something, but you still might be getting real field performance numbers in sub 50 like region. And if you're thinking that if that's the kind of difference that one can observe, why do we really still need to bother about Lighthouse score for that matter? Now, quick answer to that is that till the time you ship your website onto into the field, you won't be able to realize whether you have built a good website or not. And that's where measuring something with Lighthouse would be super duper important to ensure that whatever you have built is at least achieving good target number based on the general averages of metrics that Lighthouse uses. So they have kept some thresholds within which if you lie, you get a good scores. But this is a weighted average of all the websites in the world. And as I mentioned, there could be two websites which could have totally different users, and their experiences could vary. And on that note, one should understand that while Lighthouse is giving them good score on their current implementation, if they're talking about real user metrics, they should understand that my user base is coming from a very low net infrastructure background, and I should rather ship things which are even lesser in weight. So, for example, if I'm an e-com player, I could, rather than giving those fancy carousels on top of the website, I could rather just give, like, say, top 10 items that I think that uh, would have high chances of being clicked and bought eventually. So that's the kind of experience you should uh, like care about and look at the real field data. Now, very quickly, is just to make you understand that we gave you experience of three different types of bad UX, and we also explained you about the three different types of metric which are super important under the core Web Vital. So this is just a mapping to make sure you understand the three metrics using the previous example that we used a couple of slides back. So you can find here some useful information on all these metrics, how they could be measured on web as well, what kind of studies have been put in by a lot of teams at Google so that these thresholds are defined. So I was telling you, right, like in order to achieve LCP, you should, your website or largest contentful paint should happen within 2.5 seconds. So I think everything you want to know about how these thresholds were defined is captured in some of these links. These are great reads. I'll reiterate and urge you to go and read about these using this. So if you're on a mobile phone, just quickly grab a snapshot or just click the photograph if you're attending it over the desktop. Cool. So let's go a bit in detail about all these metrics. So largest contentful paint measures when a page-to-page navigation appears to complete for a user. So we previously had FCP, which is like first contentful paint, and we had some more indicators, but eventually found that LCP is the most impactful metric for the users. As the name suggests, LCP reports the render time of the largest content which is visible within the viewport. It considers images, videos, elements with background image, and block level elements containing text notes or other inline level text elements. This is super critical to understand because as you would see in one of the experiences or in the second one or in the first example that is on the top, you would see that the LCP is happening towards the end when the image is loaded. Now just imagine if I knew about this, that my LCP is happening after that image is loaded. I could have prioritized that image over the rest of the things which were loaded, which would give me a boost in my performance numbers. And also it would be a good user experience in return, for example, which will tell your user that, okay, this website loads really fast. So small tweaks like that by understanding when LCP is happening would really make your day. Anyway, I think one of the things that I really want to also tell you is that there could be multiple LCPs happening for the same website, and that is a bit more tricky situation to be in, and in fact a bad implementation, as that means that you loaded something quickly, and that's where LCP was calculated, and then you repainted the web page with some newer content, eventually making the user experience even worse. So if you're seeing those like kind of multiple LCP areas, make sure that you don't repaint, you avoid those pitfalls. Coming to the FID. So FID measures when a user first interacts and also gets a response back from the browser. So in general, an input delay happens because browser's main thread is busy. So as you would know, and this is something which is not relevant mostly today, but okay, so think of it this way, that browser's main thread is doing a lot of things. You are downloading JS, you're downloading fonts, you're downloading CSS. All those things are being processed, and your main browser main thread is busy. Now, all these things lead to these delays. And these, even when you chunk your JavaScript file, like for example, if you're building a React website, you want to use bundling, you want to chunk JS. If those individual JS are taking more than 50 milliseconds for evaluation, then it all adds to the something like a total blocking time, which eventually is something which is reflective of your FID. Because total blocking time is something which you can measure only in lab, but FID is something which you can measure in real world. So that's why if you are building a website, you should be aware that my total blocking time should be lesser, so that in real world, my first input delay and things like that is minimal. Then CLS, which is cumulative layout shift, and I already gave you the experience idea about what exactly happens, like add loads or something like that happens. So this is how this is calculated. And in fact, one of the important things to understand here is that the calculation for this is multifold. It depends on two factors. One, how much it shifted, and like which all portions shifted, and how much of each one of them shifted. So just imagine if you are having a big block which is being dragged down because of something new inserted, it will have high CLS numbers, which would impact your performance negatively. So on top of the core web vitals, there are other metrics that are that are used as a proxy or supplemental to common web vitals, which will help you diagnose performance issues. For example, something like a time to first byte, which is what is that first byte load time when you first request your website from your server. That can really impact your LCP as well, because imagine if your time to first byte itself is taking 2 seconds, then LCP of course would take its own sweet time plus 2 seconds that TTFB took. Similarly, if your FCP, which is first content with paint, hasn't happened, LCP would would be deferred as well. So you really need to, for improving LCP, you have to focus on these areas as well. Similarly, like if you talk about total blocking time that I talked just a while back, and also time to interactive, which used to be some of the metrics earlier. Some of you who are already aware of the performance metrics, you would know that how important time to interactive was before Common Web Vitals was introduced. I won't say it's not still important. It still holds 25% weightage to your Lighthouse scores, but these are lab metrics, right? It's not available in the real world. So in order to understand first input delay, you need to understand TBT and TTI in the lab itself, so that you optimize accordingly and then ship your website. Now, some of you are thinking, what's the impact? And there are like Google has done like considered a lot of resources on like millions of page impressions, and they found that if a site meets these thresholds, users are 24% less likely to abandon the page load by leaving while the page is still being loaded. So these are the kind of users that we call ghost users, because normally businesses don't even get to know which these users were, who could potentially would have landed onto the website but eventually didn't, and they just left off even before you could load a simple JavaScript, like say activating GA, which could figure out how many users landed and how many dropped off. So these ghost users, you like 24% of the users you could actually avoid from being dropped off even before you know it. So one of the other thing which why this should really matter to you is, we all know how important search is. Like not every website is super famous, not every business is super famous that people would directly land onto it, and that's where I think people still search for a lot of relevant content and then eventually land onto your website. So these metrics are planned to be included in the new page experience search ranking, amongst other signals, which provide a holistic picture of quality of the user experience on that particular website. So the rollout of these signals is to be decided, and hence there is no immediate action that is required from your end. You should not worry that, okay, if I won't achieve these metrics, my ranking would be impacted. And let me assure you that it's to be decided, and the teams are like planning to provide at least 6 months notice in advance before the change is rolled out. And you can, of course, read more about this on the Webmaster Central blog, which is available at the bottom left corner. I have just shared the bit.ly link, bit.ly page experience. Cool. Now, just quickly jumping on to what next, what are the kind of tools? So, of course, like you understand that these are the important metrics that you should be taking care of. But important thing is, even if I want to make change, I should know what I should be changing. And that's where tooling becomes super duper important. I think Sam also shared that how many tools are already using this. But this is a snapshot of the tools or the popular Google tool for web developers, which by the end of May have been announced to support Core Web Vitals already. And even beyond this, even in the real world, some of you might be using SpeedCurve or other types of real user metrics tools for evaluating the kind of experience your users are having. And for that, Even those are now supporting Core Web Vitals, most of them, and rest of them are committed to start like reporting these numbers. Now, let me quickly walk you through some of these very useful tools and show you a flavor of how Core Web Vital metrics are captured by each one of them. So first one is, sorry, this site is not loading. But anyway, I'll just quickly tell you about what Page Speed Insights is. So first one, of course, is Page Speed Insights. Pardon for not loading, but I'll tell you about it. So it's a super cool and easy tool to use, which gives you great insights about your website from both field and lab data. Now that's where it becomes super duper important and easy for to visualize how things are actually for your website. You could do a simple Google search, right? Page Speed Insights, and the tool would come up. So field data is what you measure directly while developing the website, as I told you. But how your user experience a website in real world is very important too, because your users could be coming in from low-end devices and bad network connection types, as I just told you a while back. So, there are more performance metrics which are part of this page speed insights. The image could not load, but if you certainly would visit the page speed insight, you would see that there are a lot more performance metrics which you would see on the screen, and you must start wondering what are these. I sort of just told about three metrics. Now, how do I take care of the rest? So I won't go into details of each one to not scare you much, but I'd recommend that if you're a developer, you should understand these and know the possible impact each one of these have on the real user experience. And eventually, all of these tell the final score, impact the final score that your website is getting. Now, one important thing I want to mention here is that uh, the lab test for this particular page speed insight run is done on a remote server, not on a local one from your country. And hence, the scores would be a bit lower than in reality, especially when you consider the lab aspects of it. So, hence, I want to introduce you to a second tool, and most of you must be using it already, which is called Web Page Test. This tool is like great as it gives you tons of options to customize your test. If you are looking at the GIF right now, you would be seeing that you would be able to choose location of your test, which is Mumbai in this case. You would be able to select connection type, which is 3G fast by default, and you could like fluctuate that. And in order to get so not only you would be able to get a lot many things or configure a lot different type of things. For getting the Lighthouse report also from this, you just need to go to the Chrome tab, which is a third tab, and select Capture Lighthouse report, and you would have the correct LS score as per the server location, which is Mumbai in this case there. And then you see at top, you see that 41 score. The moment you click that, it will load the web page test run from a local server. So there are tons of other things which this tool offers, but my guidance is to keep it simple for you as per your liking. And uh, I know developers love this tool, and I'll highly recommend to dig deeper later if and when required. You'll just simply understand how useful this tool is to understand the nitty-gritties about how performance of your website is impacted or loaded. So far, I've talked about capturing majorly lab data. I know PageSpeed Insights also shows you the real user data, but so far I've focused on capturing lab data. And then that's where I want to introduce you to this tool, which can help you get the real user metrics in a very consolidated and in a historical manner, which is like it, 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 it captures the data from past 28 days till the last 28 days and shows you a historical data about the different metrics. So what you see here in right now in the graph is the real world LCP data for a particular website. So as I mentioned, the green section shows how many of your users receive it within 2.5 seconds and hence count towards the fast experience. Similarly, yellow one is between 2.5 or 2.5 and 4.5, and red one is beyond, which needs serious revisit. I'm sure if you run your website through these, you would observe that there is a bigger chunk of red which is visible, and that's why you need to improve those things. So it's very easy to build these dashboards because a lot of heavy lifting has already been done. You could simply visit this link and follow the instructions, the link which is available at the bottom left corner. What it will do, it will automatically create a dashboard for you, Google Studio One, and you could define default connectors, and you just give the URL, and it will pull out the domain level data. And lastly, this is the new version of Test My Site, or Test My Site 2.0, as we all love to call it. So test my site is something which marketeers used to love, not developers. But now this, and in fact, it was an important tool for millions of visitors to help diagnose site speed, provide custom tips, and also like how to make it faster. But as I said, it wasn't very famous with developers because the numbers that used to come here earlier used to be focused on some metrics, like say FCP or something, which wasn't giving a holistic picture about the entire side load experience. Now, a good point is today the tool is updated to provide specific recommendations on how the websites can improve their mobile site, even beyond speed, and how they can deliver more personalized and seamless experiences. So key updates to this include three things. First, it's already aligned with speed metrics for Core Web Vitals, which is LCP, FID, and CLS, which I have been sharing all this while. Second, it has customized tips on how to make the site experience fast, seamless, and personal. Third, it gives you an option to download a customized report with insights, case studies, and new developer section, which tells you about the important resources that you can refer to. To use this, you can again visit this link that is available at the bottom left corner and test out your own URL. Now, don't forget to read the tips which are shared while test is being run. That is to make to ensure that it's super engaging and useful at the same time. Finally, there is also a JS library which has been for everyone, which would be able to integrate the web vitals into your development process quickly and easily without you needing to update or going through a lot of different updates. As mentioned before, there is also a Chrome extension which would allow anyone to track core web vitals of any page. And I think this is what Sam also covered a while back. But I think if you really adopt this library, this JS library, uh, it's production ready right now. You can track vitals with this and examine the implementation. If you want to really examine the implementation closely, there are a lot of subtle things to get right. Now, an important thing is you would be asking, you have shown us what Vitals is and you're giving us palette of tools to choose from, but tell us what should we do first? So I just said two things. First is if you are already having a website, which I'm assuming you would be having, you go to PageSpeed Insights. That will give you a pulse of your core web vital performance in both field and the lab. Now, I know I've told you that for the lab, there are better tools in the sense, better in the way because they will be able to run those lab tests locally. So still go to this. It will give you a good sense of how your users are actually experiencing the website. And then from the Crux data set that you'll see here, you'll be able to see whether or not 75% of your loads are hitting the core web vitals. Like if your site is loaded by 100 users, whether 75% of your users are really able to meet the core web vital threshold for each metric in the field, or both for your page and for your origin. Basically, this gives you data for both origin level and page level. So think of it this way: if you have example.com/Saurabh/ABC, it will give me the data for that particular page as well, and then it will also give me the data for the origin, which was example.com. And then you can, of course, take a look at your lab data from Lighthouse to see whether or not you're hitting the core web vital threshold for each metric in a synthetic testing environment. This helps you guide towards actionable opportunities to improve your page performance immediately while you're developing. Don't need to wait for, say, capturing the real user metrics. And step two is, of course, like learn more about it, go through the talks which are happening. WebDev Live has recently come to an end just a week back, but all the great talks by these great developer advocates is available. They have gone or covered these topics in depth about talking about how do you use these tools, how do you like correct these things. They have used relevant examples. For example, I remember Addy's talk talks about how Chloe, actually one of the e-com websites, improved their or achieved core web vitals by making certain changes, and those changes, if you replicate, you will be able to achieve that as well. And lastly, I wanted to again reiterate what Viswa shared a while back. There is the Google Devs India is running this initiative of Ask Me Anything session, Ask Google Devs India Anything. And this month, since we're doing the web dev live sessions, this month's focus is on web, and that's where if you are interested in asking about a lot of questions around, say, PWA or performance and web vitals, which you just saw, or even about Angular, you can ask these questions and submit your questions here, and relevant folks would be able to record those and share that over YouTube with you for your later reference. So make sure that you save this URL and ask us questions. And that's where it's end of my presentation. I'd love, if you love the presentation, if you could make a even like say 20% sense out of it. I think that's a great start. I know a lot of people who are starting early, they would be struggling to understand why their website loads slowly, and this is a there is a plethora of knowledge which one needs to attain in order to be optimal in web in achieving good scores. But I want to sincerely thank you for like taking out time. And if you really like the talk, tag about it, talk about it, share this with others. Make sure you use We Are Webinions, and because we have to feel positive about web, which has survived so many years and will continue to survive because it's so important. It's the only platform which reaches so many different users. Many technologies will come and go, web won't. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to share that over the comment section. I'll join you guys back during the AMA session, which is going to happen roughly after 30 minutes from now. And also, if you feel there were some questions which are not picked up, you can reach out to me, ask me that over the handle that is mentioned here, which is I am Saurav Rajpal. And by no means I want to tell you that I am Saurav Rajpal was more because I'm self-obsessed. It was because it was not available across all the platforms. And I am in that is not I am Saurav Rajpal. It's more about instant message me. Okay, cool. Thanks from your group, and thanks for being a sincere webinion. Back to the organizing team. Thank you.